Okay, the rise of the gig economy. What they're talking about is a new way that we do work and we do business, basically. They're calling it the gig economy, characterized by short-term contracts and freelance work as opposed to permanent jobs, has fundamentally altered the landscape of labor and employment. So this first sentence is about a big change in how people do or don't have jobs. So a gig is it's like a single event or a temporary event. So we talk about having a gig as being a one-off. Um, yeah, like they often talk about it in music, like musicians perform, they talk informally about having a gig. That is, I've got a show on the weekend. That doesn't mean that they have a job. It means they've got just one performance.
Can we also
And
discuss the casual academic works at the university as a gig academy?
yes, it is part of the gig economy. And some people have argued that universities pioneered casualization for other sectors, that the way that they've managed the complexities of casualization has actually been a model for some other businesses. Yes, so it is part of the same, like you could talk about casualization, and that might also be a way of understanding this.
And
So
how many years ago this process started?
I mean, it's been ongoing in the time that I've been around,
I
which is
think it is
about 20
recent because
years.
I saw one person. It has a permanent job now. They replace it with another person now. She's just a casual academic. Yeah, she's going more and more.
So what's happened is, yeah, when people with ongoing jobs leave, they don't hire replacements. They, if they can get away with it, they get casuals to do some of the work. If they have to, they'll hire people for a short-term contract and at a lower level of pay. Yeah. So that's been happening. When I started at the university in a very different role, about 20 years ago, uh, the departments, if someone left, the departments would argue for them to be replaced. And the typical thing to happen would be they would have a hiring process so that someone was hired at the same level. Um, but that has just gradually changed. And also, they used to be able to go to the university and say, our enrollments are up. We need more people to teach. And the university would authorize them hiring more people. Or they would say, look, we've got a big grant. We're bringing lots of research. We're gonna need somebody else to contribute. Can we hire someone else? But what gradually happened is instead of hiring people permanently, they hired them for 2 years, and then after that, they hired them for 1 year, and then they just tried to get away with casuals.
Exactly. So here it said that the new economy has worker. So I think
Mm,
transferred is wrong. But
mm.
anyway,
We're looking for a verb that refers to change. So because it's about altering the landscape or changing the way work is done, we're expecting that worker identity would also change. And so redefine is a way of thinking about change. It's giving it a new definition. Workers don't see themselves in the same way.
yeah, exactly.
So we're all out there trying to promote ourselves. We're like mini entrepreneurs. We're trying to come up with our own businesses all the time. We've kind of got to invent our own jobs. Um, we've got to come to workplaces and kind of convince them that we're worth hiring. Uh, that's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
got it. Okay.
So you go around and you're taking all of the risk individually by trying to create opportunities for yourself. But obviously that's nonsense because you don't have any money. Whereas entrepreneurs are usually rich people who've inherited money and then they take a few risks with it and succeed. you're looking after yourself. You're relying on your own resources. So it's more it's not so much that you have money to spend, it's more that you can't depend on anyone but yourself. Mm. Yeah, so it's more like um I think in this case it's juggle is the only one that makes sense. They juggle multiple gigs. So rather than having one main job, you have like you can see it with universities. I know some people who they do casual teaching at the University of Sydney, and there's a research assistant at the University of New South Wales at the same time, and they're trying to do both. So they're, yep, exactly. That's exactly right. Um, and I remember when I was in high school, one of the teachers at the high school, he also worked as a taxi driver, and that was very unusual. Um, because most people, a teacher's salary used to be enough to for most people to do perfectly well. But he was unusual, and also I think he was greedy. Like he was trying to make as much money as possible. Whereas now, if I heard that a teacher was an Uber driver, I'd be like, yeah, of course they are. How could they afford to live in Sydney otherwise? Yeah. Juggle means like throwing balls in the air and not dropping any. So if you're imagining, yeah, that's right. You're somehow keeping all of them going. Um, mm, yeah. Um, so the metaphor they're using is somebody juggling balls. They're trying to keep everything moving and keep everything successful.
and other ways.
Unprecedented means there's no
Like,
previous, no, it means there's no previous situation with the same characteristics. So this is new.
oh, okay.
We haven't seen people have to do this before. And what they're saying is new is blending their professional and personal lives in unprecedented ways.
No,
That
no.
is,
Is it something not common before?
I think what this clause is about is that the boundaries between being at work and not being at work are now unclear. And I think the example of Uber is a good one because Uber drivers are kind of out there fitting in their work around other things. Um, yeah, that's the thing that's unprecedented is that you're kind of always working, but in that time you're not necessarily working at every moment.
So because does it mean that
So what I guess the model of work that we're imagining here is when you're at work because you're in your workplace. Whereas something like Uber is in between. You're in your own vehicle. You
you can do your eating, food, and
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
you're not at a
sleep?
workplace. You're out there getting ready to take on a job and then to stop doing it and then to start doing it again. So that's the blending they're talking about. And the same case with something like freelance media work. Like if you're a freelance journalist, you're kind of always ready, even if you're,
Anytime.
yeah, at any time an editor might contact you and say, "Hey, I've got this piece that I need written. We can pay this much," and you've got to kind of be ready to say yes. So you're kind of always working and never working. You
Perfect.
never have a
Yeah.
job. Mm.
Yeah. Exactly. And also here it says that. How do you
Yeah.
know why routine is correct?
Okay, so there's two pairs of terms, adaptability and innovation. That is the ability to change and the ability to create something new is valued over stability, like staying staying the same, and routine, that is doing the same ordinary things over and over again.
You're right. I got it.
Yeah. So, and when they talk about valuing, they're not saying that individuals value that. They're saying that socially and economically, this is what money, this is where we put our value. We're saying that if you're adaptable and can do new things all the time, you can be paid to do that. And that will be seen as a valuable quality. Whereas if you're someone who tries to work in a stable and routine way, the same way regularly, rather than doing new things all the time, that's not as valuable anymore.
So valuing adaptability. Okay, yeah, I understand that if
Mm,
you are doing some routines, you might not get a lot of money. But but I think what we see, for example, at some of the universities,
mm.
it contradicts that. But anyway, I agree with you. So what can you exemplify for a person, for example, working in Uber, and he is doing that for 10 years? How do you say that it has valuing adaptability?
He's
If
constantly changing the kinds of clients he has. Like it's
okay.
he and
Some
also
crazy people serving.
let's say that he works he works as an Uber driver, but suddenly there's an oversupply of Uber in an area. Like there's lots of people doing Uber. If he can adapt and move into another type of job, then he will continue to be paid. But if he stays in that role and keeps competing with everybody else as it gets worse, so that's what they mean by adaptability as well. Like how quickly can you change as the circumstances change? Um, like if you're thinking about, say, university teaching, if you can only teach in one subject, that's the only one you know how to teach, then when suddenly no one wants to enroll in that subject, you're much less likely to get work. But if you say, I can teach anything, I don't mind, just tell me, then you'll keep getting paid
Yeah,
because you'll be able to teach. You might end up teaching things that you hate teaching or that you don't know anything about. Um, but being adaptable and learning new things is seen as a positive, whereas being consistent and deliberate and trying to build things is seen as a negative.
yeah, but worse. I wanna say worse, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So this is where like it doesn't mean that things get better for customers.
yeah,
I think things often get worse, but are they willing to still pay? Businesses don't really care, right?
much more money. Anyway, but finally, anyway, so anyway, for this one, the absence of traditional employments. Which one do you
Mm,
choose here?
safeguards.
Oh my God, no,
So
no, I said
in a when they say traditional, they're really talking about over the last sort of 70 years. Since World War II, in many places, having a job means that you have certain protections. That is, it means that you have access to healthcare. It means that you're able to plan a retirement. And it also means that your income is consistent, and so you can do things like buy houses and,
is
save money.
what is
Protections.
so is it a verb? Yeah,
So, well,
protect.
employment protections. So it's a noun, but yeah, it'd be like saying that a job
Protect.
safeguards or protects us by giving us these things. Yeah. This is this is like a trade-off that was made in the post-World War II period where people who had jobs, even jobs that weren't very high paying, had certain rights.
Health
Um,
insurance.
Yeah, in the United States, health insurance has always been attached to your job. In Australia, we have a partial public protection. Like most people have access to the public version of healthcare, and it's fairly good for many important things. Um, yeah, and you also then pay a small amount more for your own private healthcare. Yeah, it does because it's always been attached to people's jobs. Um,
Oh, you mean okay?
So companies have just paid each other money behind the scenes. Um, and there's a lot of competition in the healthcare sector, so they'll try to sell you things you don't need, and they'll try to force whoever's paying for your insurance to pay extra to make their businesses profitable.
Mm, okay. And okay, for the last ones, which one do you choose?
Um, Pushing us to consider. So it challenges conventional norms of work, pushing us to reconsider the social contract
Why?
between employers. So
Why
because of
didn't you choose?
this,
pushing,
Sorry, why did you didn't choose which push us?
mm, so it challenges, and then this is a dependent clause. So it's still it pushing us to consider. It's like a further activity, flowing from it challenges us, pushing us. You have to say which pushes us to consider.
So, but I think this phrase, it challenges conventional norms of work, is something that is redundant. And as the gig economy continues to evolve, and then, yeah, is it correct or not?
So what happens? This is I'm not sure what the technical term is, but that second part of the sentence, it challenges conventional norms of work. A further consequence of that is that we are pushed to reconsider social contract. So it is pushing us to reconsider. Um, you could say which pushes us, or you could say pushing us. Either of them would work here. But um, which push doesn't work because it's a single thing that's doing it.
Okay, one question. So this term, I mean, is not an explanation or something that we always use and we put it between two commas?
So that there is actually that is the main clause in this sentence. That is the independent clause. It challenges conventional norms of work. That could stand alone as a sentence.
Mm.
The subsequent clause is sort of treating that main clause almost as a subject.
No, no, can we remove this part? It challenges conventional norms of work. Can we
That's
remove
the
it?
one part you can't remove.
Oh my god. Okay. So it's
The other two clauses are dependent, and that one's independent. It's the only one with a finite verb and um without a word that makes it dependent.
I got you.
Because yeah,
Perfect. Yeah. And
it,
one question. When here,
yeah.
perfect.
So so it's almost like that final part pushing us to reconsider. That's a subsidiary effect of that whole main clause. So because
Mm-hmm.
this is happening, we are pushed to consider. Um, so it is pushing us
It
to
is
consider.
yeah.
But there's a bit of elision there. You don't have to actually say it is pushing. You can just say pushing us to consider.
Yeah. Can
Mm. Um, Mug rests frequently, forcing us to be quiet in the house at times we would otherwise like to be
yeah,
speaking, so that we don't wake him.